book, Iron Age America Before Columbus. Alright. I'm going to turn the page to chapter 6. Here we go. Our Virginia mysterious furnaces all gone. Iron furnaces and iron artifacts found by J.V. Howe in Virginia in 1946 in the Roanoke River Valley near Clarksville are discussed by Mallory in the pre-Columbian iron industry in Virginia. These Virginia furnaces and artifacts are similar to those found by Mallory and other investigators in Ohio. Clarksville, just north of North Carolina border, is near Bugs Island Lake, part of a system of flood-controlled lakes and dams on the Roanoke River and its tributaries. Howe's furnaces were not found buried inside mounds, dug inside the creek banks, or hillsides as many were in Ohio. Instead, they were stone wall shafts and were in effect much smaller versions of a big stone chimney shaft furnaces used in colonial America and later in the 19th century in northeastern U.S., including both Ohio and Virginia. Mallory observed that his discovery of 20 or more ancient smelters is a very small area of Ohio dependent upon a series of fortuitous incidents, and he observed it was almost by chance that the archaeologists were simultaneously digging up remains of the prehistoric civilization in Virginia. I must agree with him on this point, because much of what I have accomplished as an investigator of the furnaces also depend upon chance. In Lost America, Howe was described as a famous small arms expert, who in retirement in the late 1940s made a hobby of searching for Indian artifacts on his own estate, near the Bugs Island Lake Dam site, and elsewhere in the Roanoke River Valley. Howe eventually discovered 16 sites within a 60-mile radius from his home where he found iron furnaces, iron artifacts, and iron slag in various combinations. No site-by-site list of his finds is available, but several sites where remains of furnaces were found are mentioned by Mallory, who says that the bog iron is plentiful in this region around Clarksville. Mallory visited Howe in 1949, and together they inspected some of Howe's Virginia furnace sites. In their interpretation of evidence found at the Howe sites, both Howe and Mallory made the wild suggestion that the iron smelters and associated artifacts might be 10,000 to 13,000 years old because of their close association with the Folsom spear points. Mallory said in his book that the Howe iron and tools were found in close association with ancient stone tools, arrowheads, and spearheads on all the sites of discovery. The association of Howe's iron furnaces sites with Folsom spear points must have stunned some of Mallory's critics and fired up their criticism of him to the boiling point. However, close physical association of artifacts at an archaeological site often represents nothing more than a mixing of old and new. For instance, some of the pit iron furnaces of the Deer Creek Valley in Ohio found inside mounds, investigated by Mallory and others, eat a mix of prehistoric and Iron Age artifacts. Perhaps this is only because the prehistoric mounds were convenient, pre-existing, ready-made elevation for pit furnace sites. Oak Hill Furnace was above-ground stone shaft. Once Howe's site described by Mallory a place called Oak Hill, located on the high grounds overlooking the Roanoke River Valley, was a shallow oval pit 7 feet long and 5 feet wide. No measures of the depth was given. However, Mallory also stated that the Oak Hill furnace originally had a stone wall shaft, and that some of the stones were removed from it for use as headstones for graves in the nearby slave cemetery. I consider the oval shape of the Oak Hill furnace to be one of the important diagnostics of small iron furnaces. From Mallory's description of this furnace, it seems likely it was partially on the ground and partially above ground, forming a combination of these two furnace types. A sketch of the shallow pit was included in Lost America. Its length versus depth is 2.25 to 0.50 measures in inches directly from the page of Mallory's book. If accurate, the proportional dimensions suggest the pit is only what's left of a furnace bottom. Otherwise, the Oak Hill pit would not have been deep enough for proper smelting conditions to exist. But the presence of smelting debris at the site strongly suggests that this was the remains of a much deeper furnace. Our Lynn Acres furnace in Ohio, at its highest intact level, was a 10 by 9 oval and 9 deep. This suggests Howe's Oak Hill furnace should have been at least 5 feet deep. It strongly backs up the story about the furnace's wall stone being used for cemetery. So far, the stone wall construction of small iron smelting furnaces is unique to Virginia. None of Ohio's small iron furnaces that my associates and I investigated were above ground except for those built into mounds. Stone shaft furnaces on the same scale as the oak hill furnace were, however, common in ancient times in Europe, and the Romans made wise use of such iron furnaces. Mallory's chapter on Virginian furnaces gave more authority for their existence than just what he and Howe had reported. He also reported that Frank H. Roberts, a Smithsonian Institute archaeologist, was working in the Clarksville area to assess the archaeological impacts of Bugs Island Dam and Reservoir, under construction by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Mallory quoted a news story in the Richmond, Virginia Times-Dispatch, November 12, 1949, in which Roberts reported finding iron nails, iron slag, and iron fragments. Archaeologist Roberts reportedly sent the nails, slag, and iron fragments he found at the site of the Bugs Island Dam to the Smithsonian. Also, both Howe and Mallory reportedly submitted materials associated with iron smelting at the Howe site to the Smithsonian. It is common feeling amongst the author's fellow pre-Columbian Old World contact colleagues, however, the Smithsonian is a black hole for our kind of artifacts. You donate your artifacts and then they disappear forever. I'm going to stop right there reading that, man. This is from this book, Iron Age of America Before Columbus. Alright, here's the back of the book. Alright, this is a good book to get, and the main thing is that I often emphasize in my previous videos how they smelted iron. He mentioned 10,000 to 13,000 years ago. Alright, I believe it was before that. They've been smelting iron, and it was iron artifacts that was found in these mounds and around the mounds. So the ancestors were smelting iron for thousands of years here, and they used that iron to cut into rock. All right, not no simple copper. They used that strong iron to cut and to carve into the damn rock here. So when you see a lot of these images that have been deteriorated over time because they have not been kept up, I said this in previous videos, is that they used to be kept up by using the iron to cut into that deep or steel into that hard rock, and using the copper to continue to refine it. But they use the iron to cut and carve into all that rock and to make these images of these animals or these human heads as these godly